Chapter 7, How to Deal with Anger. We human beings are Homo hostilius, the hostile species, the enemy-making animal. We are driven to fabricate an enemy as a scapegoat to bear the burden of our denied enmity. Sam Kean. A famous war story tells of a platoon of soldiers who had been fighting together as a unit for some time. One night, an enemy soldier lobbed a grenade into their midst. For a few seconds, everyone froze. Suddenly, a private dove on the grenade with his helmet. It detonated under him. The man was destroyed, but the other men were saved by his heroism. One outstanding characteristic of human beings is that they are sometimes willing to sacrifice their lives to save others. Such acts of courage are honored, as they should be, as the highest expression of love. Many of us deal with anger in much the same way as the private in the story deals with the grenade. We consider anger a life-threatening experience. Anger wells up in us, seemingly from out of nowhere, and we imagine it will injure everyone we love if we let it go off. Without even thinking, we smother the anger the way the private smothered the grenade. We sacrifice ourselves to protect our friends and family. What makes meaningless sacrifice look like heroism is ignorance. History is full of pitiful, wonderful, dumbass heroes who sacrificed their lives to save those they loved from some bullshit threat that seemed real at the time, but turned out to be imaginary. The tragedy of the useless sacrifice of life has been around for as long as human beings have been around, and will remain central to the definition of humanity until we learn to create ourselves differently. Our greatest heroism, our willingness to surrender life itself for our loved ones, and our greatest tragedy, the mistaken and useless sacrifice of our own and others' lives for meaningless causes, are central to the tragic joke we are. Nowhere is the waste of courage and love better demonstrated than in everyday cases of the unsung heroes of anger. In every case, the hero is a fool. His courage is wasted. The hero's fear of the devastating effect of anger is entirely unrealistic. He or she overestimates the destructive power of anger and feels that it must be controlled, even if it means sacrificing his or her own life. What is even worse is that the poor fool dies over and over again, a little piece at a time. Anger is not a grenade. Many of us consider ourselves to be heroes and heroines when we are just damned fools. Only the people who live with such heroic fools seem to recognize them for what they are. Such recognition exacerbates the problem, for nothing pisses your average fool off more than having to live with a damned ingrate who doesn't appreciate the heroic sacrifices that have been made for his or her benefit. To make things worse, the damned ingrate usually sees himself or herself as another unappreciated hero, sacrificing the self-expression for the health of the relationship. As we accumulate resentment for not being appreciated for sacrificing our lives to protect others, our acts of love and courage become poisoned memories. The person who loved you and whom you used to love becomes the biggest pain in the ass of your life. The contrast between self-perception and perception by others stands out clearly in my work with couples and families, in which I am privy to the ongoing arguments between martyr heroes and hero martyrs. People really get mad when they're resented for withholding anger, something for which they feel they should be appreciated. But contrary to popular belief, people resent being withheld from and lied to. Withheld anger destroys relationships by sucking the aliveness out of them. For aliveness to be restored, both to the relationship and the individual, anger must be expressed. Direct and indirect expressions of anger. How does a person used to suppressing anger learn to express anger? It takes practice. The way anger is expressed has everything to do with the outcome of an argument. When anger is expressed in such a way that both people are fully present to the experience, the anger eventually goes away, and the people have a new opening in their relationship. Anger is universal, but methods of expression vary. The continuum of expression ranges from murder to total suppression and cover-up. The continuum can be divided into two parts: indirect expression and direct expression. All indirect forms are sick and stupid. Many direct forms fail as well. Many people have tried to express anger directly at one time or another, but given up because, as some have said, it only seems to make things worse. It does make things worse for a short time, but much better over the long run. When people don't get good results from the direct expression of anger, the odds are the anger wasn't completely expressed. Probably one or both people were mad, but trying to be decent and fair at the same time. Trying to be constructive while wanting to destroy is a real dilemma, a division of energy between opposing goals, and confusing. Divided expression doesn't work. This self-oppression with regard to expressing anger is what perpetuates anger. To express anger fully, we must give up most of our constraints on it. We can inhibit killing and physical violence, but we must be willing to be angry rather than decent and fair, because angry rather than decent and fair is what we presently are. After we are angry, we may not be decent and fair, but we will never be authentically angry or authentically fair while we are struggling to be both at once. Anger is universally human. Ways of handling anger are culturally varied. It is human to feel angry, just as it is human to feel love, desire, or fear. Anger is not in itself a problem. Children periodically get mad, raise hell, and get over it. Sometimes they win and get their way, and sometimes they lose, but they usually get over it. Adults, however, persist in using learned ways of handling anger that doesn't work. This attachment to fruitless strategies, not the anger itself, is the problem. Anger is bound to happen to all human beings from being little, less strong, and dependent on others for a long, long time. It seems like it takes forever to get big. All children get mad in all cultures. Some babies are fussier than others to start with, but all babies are in for disappointment as they grow older. The older they grow, the more disappointments they experience, and they protest angrily. Parental response to these early instances of protest are the start of long-term cultural conditioning. As soon as we become capable of having expectations, we become capable of protesting not having them met. As Norman O. Brown points out in Life Against Death, if being neurotic is protesting against the world being as it is, neurosis is built into growing up. As I said in the previous chapter, being a neurotic is incessantly demanding, in a rigid, stylized form, that the world be other than it is. If someone gets drunk a few times, she hasn't yet qualified as an alcoholic, but if she persists, she earns the right to the category. On numerous occasions, and at all stages of growing up, all of us behave neurotically. Whether we adopt the neurotic protest as a stand in life, as an incessant theme, and as a way of being, depends on a lot of factors, the most important of which is how we handle the anger that comes up with disappointed expectations. In our culture, when we are older, we still experience anger, but we no longer permit ourselves to be angry and to express anger at the same time. Therefore, we don't get over it as quickly as we did when we were younger. We learn, in the course of growing up, after getting punished for anger and losing a few battles, that it is smarter to hide our anger than to express it. We are raised to believe that we should get angry only at certain times, at certain people, and only if we are right. Since we all get angry all the time, at the wrong people, at the wrong times, and for the wrong reasons, we learn early in life that the way to deal with this unwanted anger is to keep it hidden. We cannot avoid unwanted experiences at the wrong times toward the wrong people, like sexual excitement and anger, just by thinking we shouldn't be having them. Denial, the most primitive and least effective defense against these things, stubbornly persists even though it never works. When we deny anger, the way we perceive the world and the way we conceive of the people in it become distorted. The rest of our lives are colored by the distorted perception of the world resulting from the stockpile of denied and withheld anger. The little nests of morality tales about anger that make up our Judeo-Christian Greek culture, that our children learn from fairy tales and schooling don't help them to handle anger. Displacement. When anger is not expressed directly, it is expressed indirectly. So it gets expressed but not experienced. If anger is not experienced, directly, it is not experienced directly. If anger is not expressed directly, it is not experienced directly. Unless a person experiences anger in the body and acknowledges the experience, the anger does not complete itself, does not discharge, subside, and go away. When anger is expressed indirectly in ways that are calculated to avoid the experience of anger, anger gets stored up rather than dissipating. The experience of anger is converted to thoughts about the resented person, judgments, complaints, conclusions, and imaginary conversations. When you are preoccupied with thoughts about someone toward whom you are angry, you become distracted. "You're driving me to distraction," my mother used to say. Forgetting agreements, standing people up, mildly criticizing most of another's behavior, having accidents, making mistakes, accidentally saying things to hurt others, and forgetting people's names are all indirect expressions of anger. I'm going to read that one again. Forgetting agreements, standing people up, mildly criticizing most of another's behavior, having accidents, making mistakes, accidentally saying things to hurt others, and forgetting people's names are all indirect expressions of anger.